Still on a high following the appointment of a new president. One special guest at the inauguration of President Ramaphosa was Dickson Ralushai, President Ramaphosa's high school friend. Ralushai and President Ramaphosa were pupils at Mphaphuli High School in 1970. Ralushai now joins us live in studio. Did I say that correctly, Mphaphuli?
That's correct, yeah.
Minjan. We're happy to have you here. A lot of people might have grown up with the president and to know him as a young star, but not have the opportunity to attend his inauguration as the state president of the country. What was that like for you?
You know, to be present at Loftus Stadium that day, it took me back to our days while we were students at Mphaphuli High School.
Yes.
That a young man like Cyril, all the way from a humble beginning in Chawel, who went to Mphaphuli High School and joined us in 1970. We saw him chairing the Students' Christian Movement in Mphaphuli High School. We ate with him at a boarding school at a dining hall. We shared the same small tins of fish that we used to open in our own room number 1. And today you see him on that stage with heads of state flocking one by one. And you look at that flammers by the SA Air Force. You know, just that moment only, it made one feel like...
It's a heartwarming moment.
Yeah, you know, it looks like it can't be true. That's all is happening around Cyril Ramaphosa, you know?
Of all the friends, how did you get to be the one who got the invite?
No, there were a number of them actually. I wasn't the only one who was invited.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't the only one.
Yeah?
Yes, I was not the only one. But I'm just saying, I felt very, very honored to be there on that day, you know.
There are many things that contribute to a person's success. One of them, sometimes, is the kind of school you went to. Do you think that there's anything that was inculcated at Mphaphuli that created leaders out of people such as yourselves and Mr. Ramaphosa?
Well, Mphaphuli was not such a special school. It was just an ordinary rural school, far in the northern Transvaal then. Although it had boarding facilities, it did not have special teachers, you know. I remember our own principal, Mr. Nsandeni, he was just from a very, very rural area.
Yeah.
Called Ralushia in our area there. And most of the teachers were also from the rural areas. So there was just nothing special about our school. How it happened to produce a person like Cyril, today to us, you know, it's a I don't know how to put it.
Yeah.
You can't just get that, how do I put it? Mphaphuli High School can come up with a person who is today is the head of the country.
Yeah.
You know, it's a moment that one cannot actually try to comprehend properly.
It's interesting that you say that even then he was the leader of the Christian movement in the school. So leadership has been we can trace it back for him.
Exactly. I think Cyril has always been very, very organized in his personal life, you know. You could see when he wakes up every morning, particularly on a Sunday, he won't miss a Sunday because there he's supposed to preach on a Sunday. He was very, very religious.
Oh, wow.
Very, very religious. And also, he was also chairing our school debating society in Mphaphuli High School then.
Yes.
And we also had I must say, we had very highly committed teachers by then. Very highly committed teachers, you know. I think a lot of discipline into him also came out from those teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of his leadership trajectory, moving from school and the kind of leadership roles he's taken on as he's gotten older?
If you follow Cyril's life, when he left Mphaphuli High School, he went to the University of the North, which is now called Limpopo, you know. Then he was also involved in the Students' Christian Movement, and also in the students' body called SABC, South African Students Organization, you know. You remember at one stage he was actually detained while the students, they were actually on a march to the nearby police station there. And from there, when he left school, he served his articles. You remember, he played a very big role in terms of establishing the NUM, the National Union of Mine Workers. He's the first Secretary General there. And also the role that he played when we were busy doing our own constitution. He was one of actually, let me say, main role players in the doing up of our own constitution. So you could see he also was a Secretary General of the ANC. He also later became the Deputy President of the country and the organization. Today we found him being the President of the country and also the organization as well. So there's been a what do you call it? A trajectory. A trajectory, you know, ever since left school. There was never a point where you say Cyril was not involved in any type of leadership. Yeah. Yeah.
So you obviously are in the circle and you've been invited to the inauguration.
I wouldn't call it a circle.
When you've attended an event such as that one, what feelings does it inspire within yourself as an individual in terms of the role you can play in the South Africa of under the leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa?
It's unfortunate that some of us already are beyond the
there is no such thing.
There's a lot of things that we can learn from Cyril. You know, there are a lot of things. Like the main things that it's possible with any child to rise up the level, up to the stage where Cyril is right now. It's possible. And this is what I always say to young chaps, that there is nothing that's impossible for you to achieve in this country with all the opportunities that are there, you know. I mean, Cyril's like some of us who went through very difficult times for us to be active in our own organizations. So we're detained, we are harassed, and so on. But right now, there's nothing that stops every young person, you know, to go and rise up the ladder, up to the level where Cyril is right now, you know. It's just a question of commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, do you want to tell us about your personal story growing up during apartheid?
I grew up with my parents. We were actually in Sophia Town, and later we moved up to Meadowlands, Zone 6. Along the road. Yeah. If you know Zone 6, there's a Forbes road that goes up to Zone 8 in Meadowlands. By the time we moved in there was no Zone 9 or Zone 10 there, if you know where it is.
Yeah, I just remember that for the longest of time, the biggest house there was Mudise's house.
That's correct,
yes.
Yeah. And then my father died in 1965. He was hit by a Patco bus while walking from Zone 8 coming down home to Zone 6. He died on the spot. And we remained there with my mom in our house until my mother died in Baragwanath in 1969. She died quite young. She was not even 40.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, then when I did my Form 4, that's when I was at Mphaphuli High School. That's when Cyril joined me in 1970.
So you met in high school?
That's correct, yes. Yeah. Yes. From there, I worked for a year, and thereafter I went to the University of Zululand to study law, but I couldn't finish. You remember what happened in 1972 after the Tiro speech at Teflop, where most of the black campuses were closed, if you remember that history. And then from there, I came back home in Sibasa. I stayed with my aunt, Wishinaka Mashamba. Maybe the other thing that I omitted is my primary education before I met Cyril. I stayed with my uncle, Wapungo, Mr. Pungo, at a place called Chififi, attending a primary school at Dumasi. That's where I completed my 1965.
Yeah.
That's when I was staying with my aunt, Wishinaka, Wapungo, my uncle, after the death of my father. And then I moved to Mphaphuli High School, started my Form 1 in 1966, staying with my aunt, Wishinaka, my shop, at a place called Achifura. Achifura is under Mphaphuli.
Yes.
And then when my mother died in 1969, I went to boarding school. My uncle, who is late now, Professor Ralushai Victor, took me to a boarding school and Mphaphuli High School.
The much celebrated Victor Ralushai.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my uncle. That's the last born in the family.
Okay.
My father is the firstborn.
So, just to, in wrapping up our conversation, how do you feel about this South Africa that we have 25 years after democracy?
The past, I must be open with you, the past 10 years, you know, were not one would expect from what we've gone through ever since 1994. I think right now we are on a path that actually going to open a lot of opportunities for South Africa as a country. The past 10 years, I must admit, it was, let me use the word, it was hell for some of us to see what was happening.
In what way?
Desiree, if I ask you to check what's going through, what you are hearing there through the Zono Commission, you have seen what's happening there. If you listen to the PIC Commission, you know, how much money was actually stolen, you know, from this country. And that the money that should have been used to build people's homes, the money that should have been used to do all the service that people need.
Yep. When you say some of us went through the word that you used, were you affected personally?
There's no way that you cannot be affected. There's no way. There's no way you cannot be affected. There's no way you cannot be affected. You know.
But you're optimistic now.
I'm very, very optimistic. You know. That's what I'm saying. Let's try to give Cyril all our support.
Yeah.
Ever since he moved into that high office, you know what has actually been happening, what's happening on a daily basis. What steps has he taken to implement some of the things that we should have implemented years ago, you know? I think most South Africans are very, very optimistic. Even the markets are responding very, very positively, you know? I think we are on the right path.
Mr.
I would say maybe what actually happened at Nasrec, it was some intervention by God, you know? That's what I believe.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Dickson Ralushai went to high school with President Ramaphosa and had the honor of being invited to the inauguration. You're watching The Agenda. Let's take a break.